France, 1944. Early morning. A hedge-lined crossroads just beyond the front. Fog hangs low over the fields, thick enough to dull sound and blur distance. The kind of fog that makes every shape look harmless until it is. Boots sink softly into damp soil. Somewhere nearby, an engine coughs once, then goes silent. The German officer checks his watch. Everything is on schedule. His platoon is dug in exactly where the map says they should be, rifle pits aligned, machine gun covering the road, reserves positioned behind the hedgerow. The defensive plan was briefed the night before, written clearly, approved at battalion level. Hold this position. Do not advance. Do not withdraw. He followed it perfectly. The officer crouches behind the hedge, field glasses pressed to his eyes. Ahead, the road bends gently to the left, disappearing into fog. That bend is important. According to the plan, it funnels the enemy into a narrow kill zone. According to the plan. Minutes pass. Nothing happens. A young corporal shifts beside him, restless. "Herr Lieutenant," he whispers, "we hear movement to the south." The officer lowers the glasses. "Ignore it," he says quietly. "Our orders are to hold here." The corporal nods and settles back into position. The officer feels a familiar reassurance take hold. He has done this before, in training, in combat. Discipline matters. Orders exist to prevent chaos. A soldier who improvises without command creates weakness. The fog thins, just enough for shapes to form. Not on the road. On the flank. The officer stiffens. Through the haze, dark figures move where the map said there would be nothing, shadows slipping between trees, low and deliberate. American infantry, advancing cautiously, not where the Germans expected them to be. The officer studies them carefully. They are not attacking the crossroads. They are bypassing it. His instinct screams to adjust, to shift the machine gun, to pull the men back 10 meters and reorient the defense. But instinct is not an order. He looks again at his watch, then at the map folded neatly in his pocket. The plan assumes the enemy comes straight down the road. The plan assumes yesterday's battlefield still exists. The battlefield has moved. Another runner crawls up behind him, breath tight. "Sir, firing to the east, they're probing our rear." The officer closes his eyes for half a second. This is the moment. The moment where command doctrine clashes with reality. If he moves without orders, he violates everything he was taught. If he holds, he obeys, but risks letting the situation slip beyond recovery. He chooses obedience. "Hold positions," he orders. "No firing until they enter the road." The runner hesitates. "Sir." "That is the order," the officer repeats. The runner crawls away. Seconds later, the first American shots crack from the flank. Not loud. Not panicked. Controlled. A German soldier cries out, then another. The machine gun on the road remains silent, pointed perfectly at a place the enemy no longer intends to use. The officer grips the hedge, knuckles white. He has followed the plan exactly. And the plan is already killing his men. The first man goes down without a scream. He slumps sideways into the mud, helmet rolling off, eyes wide with surprise rather than pain. The shot came from the hedgerow to the south, precise, disciplined, not a wild burst, a measured advance. The officer turns his head, just enough to confirm what he already knows. The Americans are not rushing. They are unfolding. Rifle teams move in short bounds. One fires, the other shifts. Every step is deliberate, shaped by terrain the German map never accounted for. A shallow ditch, a collapsed fence, a gap in the trees opened by last week's shelling. None of it exists on paper. Another runner reaches the officer, sliding in beside him. His face is pale beneath the grime. "Sir, the left section is taking fire from 2 directions." The officer nods without looking at him. His eyes are fixed on the road, the empty road, the kill zone that remains untouched, pristine, irrelevant. He reaches into his pocket and unfolds the map again. It's perfect. Clean lines, clear symbols, arrows drawn with confidence. The plan assumes the enemy behaves rationally, moves where he is expected to move, reacts the way he has before. But the battlefield doesn't care about assumptions. A machine gun opens up behind them, American this time, not spraying, pinning, forcing heads down while riflemen inch closer through cover the Germans were told didn't matter. The officer's platoon is still intact, still disciplined, still waiting for the enemy to step into the road like the map promised. It doesn't happen. A grenade lands behind the hedge, not thrown blindly but rolled, stopping exactly where two soldiers are huddled. The explosion is sharp and contained. When the smoke clears, one man is gone, the other is screaming. The officer's jaw tightens. He knows what must be done. Shift the gun. Pull back 10 meters. Collapse the road defense and face the flanks. But doing that would mean acting without permission. In German doctrine, orders are anchors. They keep units from drifting into chaos. Officers are trained to execute, not reinterpret, especially under fire when mistakes multiply fast. The officer lifts his radio handset. Static. He adjusts the frequency, tries again. Nothing. Communications have gone silent. Now the decision is his alone. The corporal from earlier crawls back, eyes wild. Sir, we are being wrapped. We need to move. The officer looks at him for a long moment. He thinks of the briefing. The certainty in the major's voice. The warning about improvisation. Hold, the officer says again, more quietly this time. The corporal stares at him, disbelief flickering across his face. Then training takes over. He nods and crawls back to his position. American fire intensifies. Not everywhere. Only where it needs to. The Germans are being cut apart in sections, each isolated by terrain and timing. Men who cannot see each other, cannot support each other, cannot move without exposing themselves. The officer finally gives the order to return fire, but it's late. Shots crack from German rifles, disciplined but unfocused. They fire into fog and foliage, trying to hit an enemy who has already shifted again. Another man falls, then another. The officer feels something hollow open in his chest. This is no longer a fight. It is a demonstration. The Americans are showing him something without saying a word. They are fighting the ground as it is. He is fighting the ground as it was. And the difference is measured in bodies. The officer stops counting the minutes. Time has lost its shape. What matters now is distance, how close the Americans are, how little room remains to correct what has already gone wrong. A rifle cracks from the hedgerow behind them. Another German soldier jerks, drops, and lies still. No scream, just the dull finality of a body settling into wet earth. The officer presses himself flatter against the hedge. He can hear his own breathing, too loud, too fast. He forces it down. Control matters. Panic spreads faster than bullets. Shift fire to the south, he orders at last. The command moves down the line, relayed by hand signals and shouted fragments. Men pivot awkwardly in shallow pits that were dug to face the road, not the trees. Their angles are wrong, their cover incomplete. They fire anyway. The sound is sharp and desperate, rifles barking at shadows that refuse to stay put. Leaves shatter, bark splinters, nothing solid answers back. The American fire does. It comes from a new direction now, slightly higher ground, just enough to rake the pits from above. A position that didn't exist yesterday, a position the plan never imagined. The officer crawls to the machine gun crew. The weapon is immaculate, belt-fed, barrel cool. It has not fired a single round. Traverse left, he snaps. Cover the trees. The gunner hesitates. Sir, the field of fire. I know, the officer says. Do it. The gun swings, awkward and limited by the hedge it was never meant to cross. When it fires, the burst chews dirt and branches, but fails to reach the men actually advancing. The officer watches the tracers cut empty space and feels something inside him fracture, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet understanding settling in. The plan has not failed. The plan has been obeyed. And that obedience has become a trap. A shout rises from the rear, American voices, close now, too close. A squad has slipped through the gap behind the position, the same gap the officer dismissed earlier because it wasn't marked on the map. They appear suddenly, rifles up, faces calm, movements rehearsed. A German soldier spins toward them and fires wildly. He is cut down instantly. The officer reaches for his pistol, then stops. He sees it clearly now. Every second spent holding this position has only made the outcome worse. The Americans are no longer testing, they are closing. Fall back, he orders finally, withdraw to the tree line. The words feel heavy, late, almost dishonest. Some men move, others don't hear. Others try and are pinned mid-motion, caught between obedience and survival. The withdrawal collapses into fragments. A machine gun jams. A runner goes down halfway to nowhere. The platoon is no longer a unit. It's a collection of individuals reacting to a situation that should have been addressed 10 minutes earlier. The officer scrambles to his feet, waving men back, shouting over gunfire. He is no longer thinking about doctrine or orders. He is counting who is still alive. The tree line offers little protection. The Americans press forward without haste, methodical, disciplined. They are not chasing, they are sealing. Within minutes, it's over. Those who can surrender do, those who cannot lie where they fell. The officer lowers his pistol slowly, hands empty, chest heaving. Around him, the field is quiet again, not peaceful but decided. He looks back toward the road. The kill zone remains untouched. Perfectly prepared. Utterly unused. He followed the plan exactly. And in doing so, he lost his men to a battlefield that no longer cared what the plan said. The gunfire fades unevenly. Not all at once, just enough to make the quiet feel wrong. Smoke drifts low over the hedgerow, mixing with fog that never fully lifted. The air smells of wet soil, cordite, and something metallic that lingers longer than it should. The German officer stands still. Not because he's frozen, but because there is nothing left to command. His platoon is gone as a unit. What remains are scattered survivors, some kneeling with hands raised, others lying where they fell, faces turned toward a sky that never entered the plan. An American lieutenant approaches cautiously, rifle ready but not shaking. He takes in the scene with a practiced eye, positions, bodies, angles. He doesn't look surprised. This is how it was supposed to end. Officer, the American says. The German lieutenant nods once and removes his helmet. His hair is damp with sweat and fog. He feels older than he did an hour ago. The American gestures toward the road. You were waiting for us there. Yes, the German replies. The American glances back at the untouched kill zone. The machine gun still points perfectly down the empty bend, belt full, barrel cold. We saw it, the American says. That's why we didn't go. There is no mockery in his voice, just explanation. The German officer swallows. It was the order. The American studies him for a moment longer, then nods, as if that answer confirms something rather than excuses it. You held too long, he says. The ground changed. The officer does not argue. He is marched back past his men. Some look up at him, not accusing, not forgiving, just trying to understand. He cannot meet their eyes. They were disciplined. They were brave. They waited exactly where they were told. And that waiting killed them. As he is led away, the officer glances once more toward the crossroads. Engineers are already moving in, marking paths, adjusting positions. The Americans are rewriting the battlefield in real time, treating it as something alive, not fixed. The officer understands now what his training never taught him. Precision without adaptation is not strength. It is exposure. They question him briefly. Not aggressively, not theatrically, just enough to confirm unit identity, timing, and the direction of the failed counterattack. The Americans already know most of it. His answers change nothing. That somehow hurts more. He is moved to the rear as the morning opens up. From a shallow rise, he can see the field where his platoon made its stand. Engineers are cutting lanes through the hedgerows. Infantry are repositioning machine guns to cover angles that didn't exist an hour earlier. The battlefield is being rewritten. He watches an American sergeant point at the road, the perfect kill zone, and shake his head. Another soldier laughs softly, not out of cruelty, but relief. They avoided it. They survived by refusing to step where the plan expected them to. The officer looks down at his boots, caked with mud from a position that no longer matters. He thinks back to the briefing, the certainty, the clarity, the confidence that precision would compensate for uncertainty, the belief that obedience would hold the line until higher command could respond. But higher command never saw the fog, never felt the ground soften under boots, never heard the first shot come from the wrong direction. Orders, he realizes, are photographs. Reality is motion. By the time the camera catches up, the subject has already moved. Later that day, as prisoners are processed, he overhears an American officer explaining the engagement to a junior man. The words are casual, instructional. "They waited where we wanted them to wait," the officer says. "Once we knew that, everything else was timing." Timing. The German officer closes his eyes. Timing was the one variable the plan treated as fixed. The holding area is quiet. Not calm, just orderly. Prisoners sit in small groups, guarded but not harassed. Water is passed. Wounds are dressed. The machinery of war keeps moving, indifferent to who followed which rule. The German officer sits apart, hands resting on his knees, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. He replays the moments again, not the firefight, not the surrender, but the pauses, the seconds when he could have shifted the gun, the breath he took before saying hold, the certainty that discipline would buy time. It didn't. It bought stillness. And stillness, in a moving fight, is exposure. An American captain stops nearby, checks a clipboard, then looks at him. "You held your position," he says, not accusing, observing. "Yes," the officer replies. The captain nods once. That's why it ended fast. The officer absorbs that in silence. He thinks of his men, how they waited, how they trusted that obedience would be enough. He thinks of the map, folded cleanly, its lines unbroken by fog or shelling, or the small human choices that bend battles out of shape. He understands now what the plan demanded and what it forbade. It demanded precision. It forbade adaptation. And the battlefield punished that imbalance without hesitation. When he is moved again later, farther to the rear, he passes the crossroads one last time. The hedgerows are cut, new lanes are open. The road is still there, still quiet, but now it's just one option among many. The place where his platoon died is no longer special. That, more than anything, tells him the truth. Years later, the officer will explain it simply. He won't blame cowardice. He won't blame bad luck. He won't even blame the plan itself. He will say this: "The plan was correct until it was, and when it stopped matching reality, I treated obedience as safety." The lesson is not that orders are useless. It's that orders are starting points, not shelters. In France, in 1944, A German officer did exactly what he was trained to do. He executed precisely. He held faithfully. He waited where the plan told him to wait. The battlefield moved anyway. And because he refused to move with it, his men paid the price. War does not reward perfection in isolation. It rewards alignment with reality, moment by moment. The plan remained flawless on paper. The ground did not. And between those two truths, a platoon disappeared.